It's that time again. My podcast, Late Fee Files, that I host with my friend and fellow content creator, Midnight Film Review, has a new episode out. And of course, as I've stated, in the month of October, we've been doing spooky movies. And for our second double feature in the month of October, we're honoring one of the greatest horror filmmakers of all time, Mr. John Carpenter himself. Of course, on our podcast, we don't delve into the more well-known movies. We look into stuff that's more under the radar. So this week, we're doing that for him by looking at 1987's Prince of Darkness and 1998's Vampires. Now today, Prince of Darkness absolutely has a dedicated following, but this was one of the films that came out during his peak in the 80s that is surrounded by a lot of more notable and talked about work. It tends to get overshadowed by The Thing, The Fog, Christine, Big Trouble in Little China, and even They Live. I almost like to look at this film as a 1980s take on The Exorcist, one that brings together the notions of science and spirituality, having the Catholic Church recruit a group of quantum physics students to investigate a cylinder with a green liquid inside of it that happens to be a liquidated embodiment of the devil himself. This would notably have Carpenter reunite with three actors he had worked with prior: Donald Pleasance, who was in Halloween, and Victor Wong and Dennis Dunn, both of whom were in Big Trouble in Little China. The thing about this film is that Carpenter wrote the script under an alias, Mark Quatermass. And it's actually a very complicated script because its language is very detailed around quantum physics, something that Carpenter was very fascinated with at the time that he came up with this movie. But it's still a wonderful horror film on his resume, one that deserves a lot more talk. Brian and I definitely delve deep into it in our latest episode. Now, if I were to describe Vampires in one statement, I would say it's a very amusing shit show. Definitely a time where Carpenter was winding down. This is one of his last few films. And it's not even a film that he directly wrote or something that was intended for him to direct. It was developed a lot earlier than the film was actually released. As a matter of fact, the entire setting and concept had been frequently changed. While the vampire elements were always there, it transitioned from being a mystery horror film set in the Vatican to actually being a western set in the New Mexico desert. Directors such as Sam Raimi and Peter Jackson had been offered this movie. Actors such as Al Pacino and even Joe Pesci were offered the lead role. When the script landed on John Carpenter's desk, it allowed him to realize something he'd always wanted to do: make a western, to which I would best describe this as a western that just happens to have vampires present. Sure, the action is entertaining, but as a John Carpenter film, it doesn't exactly live up to that bar, and Brian and I definitely talk about it, but interestingly enough, we have different perspectives on it. My friends, you can press play on this latest episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're not doing so yet, please give our podcast a like, a follow, and even a review. We'd greatly appreciate it.